Would love to welcome to talkSPORT's End Zone page. You can subscribe, follow. We have the Rundown show that I do every week with Will Gavin. Great to have on this episode Marc Ross, who is a highly respected, longtime NFL face, NFL voice. He's obviously with NFL Network. You see him on the channel. He does all the front office talk. And Marc, it's wild card weekend, super wild card weekend, as people like to call it. But we know this is the real season. It's not about the games. It's about the hirings and the firings and everything going on, which, less than half the league doesn't make the playoffs. And they're already geared toward free agency and the draft. And if you're a New York Giants fan and you know that franchise very well, the Las Vegas Raiders, Jacksonville Jaguars, these are your playoffs. This is the real stuff. So let's just dig into this. Number one, I'm going to put you on the spot. I have no idea what you're going to say. What are the New York Giants doing? And how if you're a Giants fan, do you buy in? Maybe you do. I don't know. Do you buy into Brian Daboll and the general manager coming back after someone named Saquon Barkley goes to the Philadelphia Eagles and has the best season since Eric Dickerson? Daniel Jones doesn't work out. Man, you know this team, Marc. What are the Giants doing?
Yeah, it really can't get worse for the Giants fans right now, but particularly the way the Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones situation played out on Hard Knocks. I mean, it was almost as if that was still part of the script for that to happen, to say, we're going to build this up. Like, this cannot be real, that this guy is having a MVP-like season, breaking all the records. And for the Giants fans, it's just been constant turnover. I haven't been there since 2017, but it's just been what we're going on. They kept the GM and head coach, and I really think that is the main reason why the ownership, John Mara, didn't make another change, because he just didn't want to make another change again. And, I called it firing fatigue on Monday when I talked about it. And it's just, how many more, checks can you write to the guys that aren't employed and don't want to go through another change? But, in his press conference, I don't know if you're able to see it, but there really wasn't anything in the press conference as a Giants fan that made you feel good that they're coming back. So you're really just almost in Stockholm syndrome right now, where it's just like, if you're still rooting for it, you're in a tough spot. But it's the whole, Joe Shane is in a tough spot, Brian Daboll, because at the end of it, John Mara said, I'm running out of patience. Well, now every single thing you do every game is one step closer to, if we don't perform, then we're gone. Is that game 1? Is that game 2? Is that game 10? So it's really going to be a stressful offseason for the Giants.
There's a team that's related to the Giants in the sense of the NFL draft, and that's, for me, the Tennessee Titans, who I think a lot of people were maybe caught off guard by, and you know this league, you know how this stuff works, right? If you're a GM, if you're in the front office, if you're a scout, whatever, you're really busy during the regular season. You're not so much focused on your team week to week. You're going all over the country, scouting games, looking at the draft. And the Tennessee Titans, partially thanks to the New York Giants, have the number 1 overall pick. And I want to get into that down the road in this interview for talkSPORT. But to fire your general manager when you just won the number 1 pick, and obviously they had a bad season and they might have the best roster, but that general manager was part of those discussions to hire the head coach, who a lot of people thought maybe would get fired. How do you explain that to Titans fans, and how does that set them up to get the best possible talent at number 1 overall?
Well, the one common theme, and you started out talking about the playoff teams and the teams that are looking for, there's this common theme, is that the teams that are in the playoffs now are the same teams that are always in the playoffs. And they've got a stable owner, they got stable quarterback, they got a stable head coach GM situation for the most part. 14 teams, I'd say 12 of those really fit into that category, especially the better teams, KC, Baltimore, Buffalo. Now Detroit figured it out to have the marriage of the GM and head coach. Ownership kind of got in there and stepped out of the way. But these teams that are all looking, it's constant change and constant turnover, and owners who are in the mix and meddling, so to say. Yes, you own the team. You can do what you want. But you think the owners now would take a step back and look at the successful organizations and how they are run and say, we should model ourselves after that. And, the GMs and head coaches that get fired, they get a lot of blame, and rightfully so, but they don't hire themselves. And when there's constant turnover from the GM and head coach position, that's on ownership. And, it's kind of taboo to talk about owners in the NFL when you're involved, but they're the bosses that, they run everything. So they really have to look inward. I think there needs to be a lot more of that with the teams that aren't successful. And getting back to Tennessee, your initial question, John Robinson, the GM, got fired for the sake of Vrabel. Then Vrabel gets fired for the sake of Rand Carthon. Now Rand Carthon gets fired for the next head coach and a guy who who came over top of him. So there was some internal backbiting, which happens in the NFL. Of the new guy that got in control of power has the ear of the owner and telling the owner certain things. Well, now let's make you the guy right now. And next year is another head coach, and who knows what's going to happen in that spinning cycle of who's the next man up, who's the next person that has the ear of the owner, who's the next great idea, and then we'll just put them in place. And then a year later or two, like, actually, no, we don't like you. I mean, Rand Carthon got an extension and a job promotion last year. You know, he was in year 2. He already got one after year 1, and now a year later, he's not good enough. It just doesn't really make sense.
So we're going to do positive in a second, but as you know, there's been a lot happening in the NFL, and I think this is the super interesting stuff that we can really sink our teeth into in the United Kingdom and also in New York and throughout the United States of America. Another team that keeps hiring and firing, the Las Vegas Raiders, but now Tom Brady might be part of the head coaching search. He's got a pretty big job. The last I heard, to call the Super Bowl. Mark Davis just. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when they're going to find the one, but they're trying to do this again. What do the Raiders need? And part of that's a franchise quarterback, but maybe put yourself in Brady's mind for a second. I mean, he's got an opportunity here to use his voice to apply his expertise for the first time really to a front office position and help out the Raiders. Where do they go from here, and how do they fix? Where you've got Max Crosby, you got some talent, but they're just misfiring every year right now under Mark Davis.
Yeah, and again, it's as you said that they fall into that category of the turnover. And I actually interviewed for the Raiders GM job when they gave it to Mike Mayock. So which was like, whoa, what's going on here? But
no comment from here. No comment from London on Mike Mayock being the Raiders GM.
Yeah.
And, nice guy, by the way.
No, extremely nice. But with Tom Brady, here it is. Okay, you have an owner who's shown, okay, I keep hiring and firing people, so that really is not the way to go. And now you bring in Tom Brady, who is wonderful, is the GOAT as a player, but has never been in this position before. And it's not the same to be on the outside looking in and then say, okay, now I'm owning the team and making input. So what do you rely on when you don't really know? You just rely on what you know, and he knows his Patriots guys. That's what he knows. Yeah. So, that's really the input he's going to give is, here are my Patriots dudes that I want to hire. I want to hire Vrabel. It's that to me is you just boil things down to the most common factor. And, well, I know the Patriots guys and Vrabel's the guy. So, which I think would be a great hire because I think he may be the best coach on the market, especially if you want a guy with experience. So that wouldn't be a bad thing in and of itself. But I think with Brady, I don't think there'll be this wide cast net of I know all of these things and people, and I think I'm going to go with my dudes and give them a chance. So I would expect if he does have a lot of input, it would be a Patriots guy.
So one last team that I would love to get into, and this is a team that has a closer connection to London, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who again made an interesting move to fire Doug Peterson, which personally I thought should have been done during the bye week. I watched them in London, and they just weren't good enough. Trevor Lawrence is either going backward or sideways. He's not going forward. They have a ton invested in him, but they have talent. That roster has talent. I guess that's how Trent Baalke kept his job again. But if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, Shad Khan talked about, hey, we want a coach with deception, which sounds to me like you want to hire a college coach, not an NFL head coach. But let's give you the billion. You're going to run the Jacksonville Jaguars. You have Trevor Lawrence. You've got Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver. You have a talent. You're getting a new stadium. What should they do? Because again, that's a franchise that just keeps misfiring and hiring the wrong people, and they need, just like the Raiders, they need stability at the head coaching position.
Yeah, well, again, you want stability, but you're not setting yourself up for stability because, as you just mentioned, they fired Doug, but they kept Trent. And that's just, you can't operate like that. So now you're already handicapping yourself because, okay, what head coach is really going to want to come in there to work with a GM or for a GM who already has hired 2 coaches there and survived those firings of those 2 coaches. So now you're saying, well, wait a minute now, if things start going south, am I going to get it and he's still going to be there? And if there's a disagreement, what's going to happen? And Shad Khan has already come out and said the head coach is going to report to the owner, and it just doesn't work like that. Look at the successful organizations. It does not work like that. They have to be equally yoked and reporting together. It has to almost be a triangle of head coach, GM, owner, all on the same level. And so they're already starting out behind. Okay, now you say, well, okay, I'm Shad Khan's going to hire the head coach. Well, is he really the guy qualified? Well, no, Trent, you do it. Well, now this will be the 6th time that Trent Baalke gets to hire a head coach. I mean, that is historical where between his time in San Francisco and now in Jacksonville, it'll be the 6th time. 3 of those coaches that he hired, 3 of the 5 were one and done coaches. There's only been 10 in the
That NFL. Is unbelievable. That might be the most underreported stat in recent NFL history.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, right? He's Ted Williams. I mean, he's hitting 3 and 10. Like, I did that, man. There's only been 10. I got 3 of these. So, like, how do you trust? That could be. He's the right person to make the hire. So, there are some inherent advantages of being in Jacksonville, as all these jobs are. There's some positives and extreme negatives, but do the negatives far outweigh the positives if you want to take that Jacksonville job?
We're speaking with Marc Ross from NFL Network. We'll get a few more in. Love having him on talkSPORT. You can follow him on Twitter at Marc Ross, MARC. He's an NFL analyst, front office analyst for NFL Network. He was part of the New York Giants when they won 2 Super Bowls. He's been with the Eagles and the Bills. And I would love to get into the Eagles really quick because this is a team that mid-season, speaking of hiring and firings, it started looking like, okay, Nick Sirianni is gone. It ended so badly last year. Yeah. He shaved his head. Philly fans were ready to walk him, like not even drive him, walk him out of the state of Philadelphia. And they're one of the best teams in the NFC right now. And, Jalen Hurts is still dealing with an injury issue. But with Barkley, with the offensive line, with the wide receivers, a lot of talent. How have the Eagles, in terms of ownership, front office, Sirianni, on and on, how have they been able to really kind of toe that line between drama, dysfunction, disarray, arguments, but also they keep winning games and they could very well be in the Super Bowl again this year. I think they're one of the most interesting teams and franchises really in the NFL.
Yeah, so 2 things. I'm from Philadelphia. I live here in Philadelphia now again, so I get it firsthand. I love it. Former players that I drafted are on sports radio here, the Hugh Douglases and Ike Reeses of the world. So I always love listening to them. So I get to absorb it from a national guy. Just laugh at all of the dysfunction and outrage of my Philadelphia fan base here, who are just absolutely wild. But as you said, they at one point the Sirianni head shaving scandal. I mean, that was just insane, and get this guy out of here. And then all of a sudden they just kept winning and looking better and better and better. And Saquon was going nuts, and AJ Brown was doing his thing. Devontae Smith, here we come. Defense started playing, legit under Vic Fangio, and that's a testament to. Despite the outside craziness, they are a stable organization with Jeffrey Lurie. And I started out with the team. I worked for the Eagles, starting in 1997, and he bought the team and figured out how to be one of those owners to give your input, but stay out of the way. And Howie Roseman has been there a long time. The GM, he knows what he's doing. So they do have that stability to absorb all the craziness. And then they do have all that talent too, to absorb that while they figured it out. So, of course, they're going to be dangerous. They were just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They were on the path last year before they fell apart because of the behind-the-scenes turmoil that happened. A lot was going on there. Fired both coordinators. So they had a lot of change and turmoil. But now going into it, they're thinking, this is our chance. We got to, of course, win the games and go into Detroit if we get there and go win that. But I think there's that confidence and the talent level that all of that is in the past. It's still right there, though. Don't worry. Something goes awry. Sirianni does something.
It can fall apart in wild
real quick. Yeah, if he does something crazy again, it'll be all over. So it'll be a fun ride to see how they turn out.
All right. Well, I want to respect your time. I know you're busy, but I'll just try to get 2 in quickly. And I will acknowledge that this first one, Mark, is not an easy answer. It's very, very complicated. but Brian Flores is just clearly one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. Although I opened up Twitter today, and I love Ryan Fitzpatrick covering with the Texans. Does a great job on Amazon with the Thursday Night Football. If you ever see this, shout out to Ryan Fitzpatrick. But Ryan had a comment that, hey, he thinks it'd be hard for Flores to get another job, and because it went so bad in Miami, he was almost a different person. And I'm paraphrasing a tweet I saw. I want to ask you though about Flores. How does he not get a serious look this year? Obviously had the lawsuit and all those issues, but it seems like tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I mean, it seems like he's acknowledged that he's learned. It wasn't perfect there. We all make mistakes. And I don't care. You can talk about a billion things. I don't know how Brian Flores in this world maybe doesn't get a head coaching job in 2024, 2025.
Yeah, I saw that Ryan Fitzpatrick thing, and he's a Harvard guy. I'm a Princeton guy, so you can't really pay attention to what they have to say. But
he's not that smart. I've been around him.
Yeah. But no, and he had valid points there, and that probably what Brian Flores was then. But how long ago was that? He's saying that as if people can't change, and he acknowledged he went to Pittsburgh and learned from Mike Tomlin, who is Pittsburgh fans, the postseason success the last 8-9 years, they're not happy with that. But Mike Tomlin knows how to run a program, and he knows how to galvanize a team. He knows how to galvanize a coaching staff. So, okay, here's Flores. He goes into that situation. Okay, let me see how this is done. Now he goes to Minnesota, and he's working with Kevin O'Connell, who obviously what they're doing there works. And Kevin O'Connell, has spoken to him a bunch. He knows how to run an organization. He knows how to run a team. He knows how to galvanize a team in that sort of, hey, get along, not get a long way, but just galvanize people as opposed to the Patriot way where it's beat people down. So Brian Flores is a smart guy. It's not like he went to those two situations of success and said, forget that. I'm going to go back to what I did at Miami and just start beating people down. Obviously he's going to learn from that. And that's really what he has to do when he gets his interviews. I mean, just talk about that. He knows that's coming. He knows those questions are coming. He's a smart guy. He knows, okay, I learned from my mistakes in Miami. I was wrong. I did things the wrong way. I thought this was the way to go about it. It was wrong. I learned from Pittsburgh. I learned from being in Minnesota. I'm a different person now. I'm a different coach now. It's fairly easy to me for Brian Flores when he approaches his interviews of how to attack it, how to address it, and then go forward from there and say, look at my coaching resume. I've learned as a person, as a head coach.
Yeah, no, I think there's a great point. You can also just put on the game tape from, 15, 16 games this year and how they put together just a brilliant defense. All right, one more, we get out of here. Let's focus on a player who's we're gonna either be talking about him on Monday nonstop or until he wins a Super Bowl. But Lamar Jackson, for me, Mark, this just feels like he could keep having defining playoffs for the next 5 years, but this does feel like a defining playoff for him to where he's been close. He's acknowledged this week he was too antsy, in the past. I talked to a Baltimore columnist for the Baltimore Banner, Kyle Goon, early this season, and Kyle was saying that Lamar in the past playoffs would just try to do too much, and we've seen that before. If you're looking at Lamar Jackson, what does he need to do in this playoff other than just win to take that next step? Because, gosh, in the regular season, the stats are insane. They're historic, but he's missing that ring, and until he has it, the talk won't go away.
And the guy's 27, and he's accomplished all this, and it would have almost been better if he wasn't as great as he's been so fast. If he just kind of eased into it, he didn't win the MVP, then those expectations, but they are what they are. They're there. He knows that. I don't think anything that anyone's talking about with Lamar winning, it's not something he doesn't put on himself. So, and he always talks about that. Whenever you hear Lamar talk, it's always about the team and always about winning the Super Bowl. He never talks about individual accolades. He never talks about himself. He just talks about the team and winning the Super Bowl. So, he knows that. And he knows that's on him. And I've loved Lamar since college. I saw him as a true freshman, his very first snap. I was at the game, and I was at a good friend who was the recruiting coordinator there at Louisville. So, and he said, this guy's going to be better than Michael Vick. And then, so he's on that path. I mean, he's on that trajectory. Should win his third MVP this year. But yes, fortunately for him, the standard is win a Super Bowl. And this is a great opportunity for him. And I picked the Ravens preseason. I stayed with it midseason. I'm staying with it now for the Ravens to this is our time. The defense was in shambles at one point in the season. They've got that worked out. The greatest kicker of all time was in shambles at one point in the midseason. They've gotten that working out. We know what the offense can do. Work with Harbaugh, John Harbaugh back in Philly back in the day, so I know what kind of coach he is and that staff. So I think the pressure's on them. They know it. Just play their game. Like last year with KC, they just got like, what are we doing here? We're running.
They forgot how to run the ball.
It was bizarre. You're watching it.
You have no excuses.
And still had a chance to win. And that's how good Baltimore is. That even against the eventual Super Bowl champs, mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, and they still had a chance to win. This year, you see the same thing where they beat Buffalo, they beat Denver. They beat the Chargers. Of course, they've beaten the Steelers. Like, they can beat all the good teams. They were a toe away from beating KC opening day, and then they beat themselves and lose to the Raiders and the Browns. So if they just be the Ravens, don't make mistakes, I think it'll be a successful. They could hold up that Lombardi.
And just to clarify, you have Lamar Jackson over Josh Allen or whomever.
Saquon
Barkley as your VP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just you really we're just Josh Allen was on national TV a few weeks, and everybody was going crazy. But if you just look, number one, just look at their stats side by side. Lamar is beating him in everything. Yeah. When you look at the records against playoff teams, as I just mentioned, Lamar is I think 7-3 against playoff teams, and Josh is 2-3 or something like that. But then the historical things that Lamar has done. I mean, he's not competing against Josh Allen. He's done things that no one has ever done in history of the position with the QBR and the passing, touchdowns versus interceptions. And, by the way, he's the greatest runner of all time, too. We're not even talking about him as a quarterback. It's, yes, I've done all these historical things as a quarterback. Then I might be the best running back, too. But don't forget about all that. So, yeah, I think it should be a slam dunk for Lamar. And the biggest thing, you listen to all the players. Whenever there's a thing about the players, they all say Lamar. Like, just listen to those.
That's a good point. That's a good Mark, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I know it took us a second to figure out the UK U.S. connection, but this was actually one of the best interviews that we've done for talkSPORT during the NFL season. That. So be sure and follow him on Twitter at Marc Ross. Watch him on NFL Network, and I'd love to check in after the Super Bowl whenever. Have a great 2025 and New Year, and say hi to I've been to Philly for the World Series, so I know how and Eagles games. I know how real it is. And 76ers games.
Yeah, well, how fired up they get here. So, they're definitely expecting a parade again this year. But I'm available anytime. Thanks.